Hello and welcome to
RFM's Top 10s.
My name is Taylan Ashtra.
And I'm Jinnette Laminar.
And today we're going to be discussing the top 10 reasons why the sequel trilogy as made by Disney is the best trilogy ever made.
Number 10. It has the best choreography.
Time out. Now, what do you mean by choreography? Do you mean like how they fence, or do you mean like how the dogfights take place in outer space? Where are we going with this?
Well, first of all, did you notice that the people that they were fighting in that throne room scene, they had body armor?
Ooh, I did notice that.
Full body armor. You can barely tell that what emotions they're emitting. They could have been cyborgs for all we know. That's, you don't know what kind of opponent you're coming up against.
So that's the secret then.
That's the secret.
Remove the body armor, release the emotions.
Correct.
That's why this film is the better one.
Yes, and also one thing that's really amazing about the choreography is the music fits into the score like a glove.
Oh, I did notice the music was really quite nice. It really brought you in. That's a good point there.
It's not mine. That's Evan Monroe from FilmDiagnostics.com.
Oh, the hell you say. I love Evan. He's great.
He's amazing.
Okay, number 9. These films, the Star Wars ones, these are films for the young. And this is something that the Star Wars fandom, or the so-called fervent fans, often forget.
Star Wars is for fucking kids. Sorry. I'm sorry.
For instance, when you look at something like The Phantom Menace, what is more childlike and appropriate for a child than maybe like the Galactic Senate opting to force a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum, for instance?
And you don't even have to go as far back as the prequels. The childlikeness is right there in The Last Jedi, with the moral ambiguity.
You're right. Shades of not just black and white, but maybe gray.
Maybe gray. And the flagrant lesbianism between Leia and Dern's daughter.
Bruce Dern's actor daughter, yeah.
Do you have something, a cowl or something you can put on?
Number 8, set design.
Tell me more about the set design now.
Well, I have to quote, what's his name? Sam Adams.
Ooh, the guy who makes that delicious drink?
Yes, and he's one of the best critics out there. He says, you come away as eager to talk about the set design as you do the fate of the galaxy, or what might happen next.
Do you think so? I did notice, I think, some very nice set pieces in those.
After I watched The Last Jedi, the first thing I said to myself is, what a backdrop. And then I asked myself, did you see that glimmer over yonder?
Yes, you're right. They really put a lot of work into the background. And I noticed that too. I didn't say anything after we watched the movie though, but I did think it.
We never actually had a conversation about it. Much like we didn't have a conversation about what's going to happen next or the fate of the galaxy.
You're right.
But I can tell you, deep within the recesses of my mind, I thought, wow, that's an amazing middle distance.
So you're right. In a way, we are as eager to talk about the set pieces and the set design as the actual plot of the film. Number 7. You do not have to be a Star Wars fan to love this addition to the canon. Heck, it works even if you haven't seen any of the other movies.
And that's according to Mark Daniel at Toronto Sun.
You're right, he did say exactly what I just said. I have to agree, this is a very good standalone film. I like the idea that you can just, walk into the movie with, your partner and say, hey, what are we going to watch? Here's some popcorn. Let's go watch a blockbuster. And just be like, oh, there's this new movie with Star Wars. I've never seen Star Wars before because, frankly, I'm not a fan. But then we go in, we watch, we really enjoy it. We feel like we're really connecting to what's the powerful full energy field between all the objects.
It doesn't matter, especially if you're watching this movie. And it's much like, what's that movie, Back to the Future 2?
Yes.
Do you need 1 or 3 to really enjoy it?
You're correct. You don't.
A lot of times I would say to Ryan, you got to think about the fans. And he said, no, we got to think about the story, and we got to think about our movie. Which having grown up as a
Number 6. As Stephen Whitty for Newark Star Ledger puts it, it's not for people like me who treat the saga as simple fun. That makes so much sense. If you're just that kind of person who's really not into the details, and really, you're the kind of person who you're not really into sci-fi or space opera, then this might not be the kind of film that's for you. It's really not for those type of people. It looks like Rian Johnson took the time to make it for people not like that.
So it's really a film for the diehards.
No?
So it is time. The Jedi was dead.
Number 5. One word. Porgs.
Yes, Porgs will be under every Christmas tree on the planet, according to Bob Mundell from NPR. And that was back in 2017. And you know what? I'm not in a position to say if he's right or wrong.
No?
But that's a bold position, and I think he's probably right.
What's a porg?
Those are the little cute, on the planet with the, the guy with the cloak.
You know what? I've always thought that porgs are the anti-Ewoks.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
But in a good way.
Oh, you're right. You know why? Because think about an Ewok. What is it? No, I'm asking seriously, what is it?
It's like an iconic staple of Americana.
Mm-hmm. And it's just the opposite of that.
Right.
A porg. Number 4, best tech. That's correct. Star Wars The Last Jedi has the best tech of all of these space movies.
That's... really, you can't argue with that. Let's take R2-D2.
Perfect example. Now, when you talk about R2, you're talking about a piece of equipment that beeps. And this piece of equipment is how old now? He's been around since, I don't know, Luke Skywalker?
Imagine the NES, if you will.
Yes, you're right. He's like the Nintendo Entertainment System of little round robots.
Now his upgrade, go ahead.
Actually play old NES games on that console. So BB-8's sort of like R2-D2 in one, but also cool.
And then the lightsabers.
The tech, yes, the lightsabers. You look at what's that mean guy with the black helmet?
Darth.
No, he's not Darth. He's something else. But whatever he is,
right.
His angry lightsaber sword really, it drives home a point that I'm afraid the other films just simply couldn't.
It's distress. It's like on fire. It's like flaming.
Yes, help me! It screams through its light.
It's like on the nose. I'm angry.
Yes, it's almost like don't get me started on the ships. Those things, they just look better. Someone took the time in a way that the other guy, George Lucas, never seemed to do. Someone said, you know what, let's put someone on this shipbuilding thing and see what we can come up with. And I'm telling you, the designs are just out of this world.
Looks like it comes out of World War II. You know the bombers? Remember the bombers at the beginning?
Yes.
They flew in, they pooped out the little bombs, just like they do in World War II, instead of those silly, what do you call those, pitchfork-looking ones?
Yes.
From the other movies.
Would you go so far as to say, Ashton, that this was sort of like a World War II film?
Yes. I would say this really, in a way, is based off of World War II in a sense.
You know what's also funny? I just thought about this.
Tell me.
In World War II, there were kamikazes.
The little Asian girl.
That must have been so hard for her.
Oh my god.
Anyway, next
reliving
question.
the trauma.
Last Jedi.
The way that BB-8 took out all those armed guards.
Didn't he spin?
He spun, and then he controlled the two-legged one from the original movies.
Yes.
Number 3. Better performance. I would say, speaking of Laura Dern, she is effervescent.
Just seeing her on the big screen in this particular movie, her skill with words, with emotion, makes me wish I was born a woman and went to acting school in the 1960s.
The glint of her eye, the condescension towards the Hispanic character, to me, signified something. That's acting. If you understand what I'm saying, it's you can't fake that. I think she went full method, because I don't understand how she could put that on the screen and there wasn't some real emotion behind it.
I agree. Who else should we talk about? Who else would you say in this movie was effortlessly charismatic?
Well, obviously, Daisy Ridley.
Yes, blows me away.
Just blows me away. All of her facial expressions.
Step aside, Meryl Streep.
Step right aside. I think she's going places, and if she continues to use those facial expressions in other contexts,
Yeah, she's got a real future.
she's got a future.
Question:
For her.
Harrison Ford, Alec Guinness, James Earl Jones, step aside, because now we have, and Ashton, you may want to help me here. Daisy Ridley
We have Daisy Ridley. We have Dern, and the other actress.
and Lou DiBella. What's his name? Number 2, Hollywood Star Wars. This is Hollywood Star Wars, and I almost want to
Finally!
say, enough said. You know what I mean? This is what Star Wars looks like when it's done right.
We could go on for hours, but finally, instead of having, no offense, George, a madman do his version of Star Wars, which seems to be a Star Wars that is growing out of one man's mind. Do you know what I mean?
Right. When's the last time something truly great came from one man's imagination?
It's ridiculous, and the idea that this man would have this idea that he plotted out over a long time and try to only give the audience small details that he would slowly reveal, much in the way that God, instead of having to deal with and being bogged down with all that, we are now liberated with a Hollywood-styled Star Wars, where you really don't need to even have to have watched the prior movies if you don't want to, and now lack the enthusiasm to watch any consequential movie.
That's true.
Yep.
They fly now! They fly now! They fly now!
All right, and the number one reason why the sequel trilogy, as made by Disney, is the best Star Wars trilogy is its cohesiveness of continuity.
But that's the difference here. In the old days, there was an overall outline. This one's more like a relay race, where the first guy runs the race and hands the torch off, and then, the same with Ryan. Whoever, or JJ now is going to take Ryan's story and figure it all out.
Not only is it the perfect bridge from the original and the prequel trilogies to what Disney has in store for us next, it in and of itself functions as the synergy and nexus point of all of Star Wars. It makes the most sense when you look at it, both as a saga and as its own trilogy.
Ashton, tell us why.
Well, first of all, if you think about it really deeply, and the rise of Skywalker, you'll notice that Daisy Ridley is in all three of these movies, and you can see her grow as a person.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think that the Finn character has a different haircut in the third movie.
He does have a different style.
Different style.
That's a harken back to the old trilogy there. They changed up Luke's look quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Don't think I didn't notice.
I noticed. And when you think about it too, I love the way that the Rey, last name excluded, was predicted as early as the second film in the original trilogy.
Oh, the one in the swamp, the little, oh god, what's his name?
Yodi?
Yes.
And he in conversation with R2-D2, actually, if you were to translate R2-D2, beeps and boops, it translates, well, I just want to leave it for the recording because we actually have a recording from an insider who worked on the film and was there in the room when George Lucas and, believe it or not, Kathleen Kennedy, who was just visiting, she hadn't been working on Star Wars at this time, but was passing by the set to kind of inspect to see if this is up to snuff. And during that conversation, well, I'll just let the tape explain it.
And before we get to the tape, I want to point out that this is not some fan theory. This is not speculation.
Oh, no.
You can go on the internet. We'll provide the link in the notes.
Of course.
You can find this piece of information, and the man speaking is Matt Pugilin.
Now, Matt Pugilin, for a lot of you don't know, is one of the brilliant background people who do the super effects.
Let's see. It was me, George, and Kathleen Kennedy. This was back in 1979. We was having a bite at Dorsey's. We was just going over a bit of dialogue between R2 and Luke while they was flying in their X-Wing to Dagobah. So I says, what should he say? Meaning R2. And we threw some ideas back and forth for a bit, nothing really sticking. And then George says, have this little shit, meaning R2, let's have him say a bit about the prophesized one. And by this, we all understood that George was referring to what would eventually be Daisy Ridley's character. That's how far ahead George planned. Now, someone says, I think Kathy said, yeah, and I transcribed what we eventually settled on. What will be on the screen in Luke's X-Wing in that squiggly little language. R2 says to Luke, and this is in the theatrical release of the film, await Rey, the Stickfire, who requires no instruction. And then there was this great pregnant pause. And then George whips his head round, and he says, that's got to be the one, hasn't it? And there you have Rey, from as far back as Empire. An interesting postscript to this story, the waitress at Dorcia's ended up going home with Georgie that night, which really got my goat, because George and I had a little wager over who was going to bed this ebony firebrand. Weeks later, I returned to Dorcia's with a different group, and confronted her as to why she picked old Lucas over me. She says it's because George had shit in his eye. To this day, I don't know what she meant by that, but I think I have to agree.
You can find him on IMDb. He's legit. He's not an unnamed source. Now, if you don't see him on IMDb, because I believe it may be...
It is behind the paywall.
Behind the paywall. And if you do, for some reason, do make that payment, and you still don't see Met Pugilin, then that speaks to your character.